In a realm inhabited by yokai, where their existence was validated solely through strength, Yunyo, a fox yokai, emerged as the ultimate embodiment of power. Initially having no desire to be a king, Yunyo eventually ascended to the position of chief among the fox yokai and ruler of the entire yokai realm. Through numerous victories over countless formidable yokai renowned for their strength, Yunyo's path led him to claim the title of king. On a particular day, Yunyo encountered a human named Dharma who hailed from the human realm. Dharma, a Buddhist, had journeyed to the yokai realm with the purpose of holding the yokai accountable for the harm they had caused to mankind. As Yunyo stood there seemingly indifferent to the human's words, he was unexpectedly approached by one of his subordinates from the Fox clan. This subordinate informed Yunyo that Dharma possessed the ability to swiftly defeat 12 yokai using his peculiar gestures, which he referred to as martial arts. This revelation left Yunyo feeling perplexed. Showing little interest in the conversation, Yunyo expressed his frustration, acknowledging the multitude of headaches already burdening him in the yokai realm. Consequently, Yunyo turned around and began to walk away, advising Dharma to solely focus on apprehending the yokai responsible for the troubles in the human world. Yunyo made it clear that he would not intervene, regardless of whether Dharma chose to eliminate or spare the lives of the captured yokai, as it was not his concern. Despite Yunyo's dismissive response, the determined monk persisted and unleashed a powerful strike with his staff, only for Yunyo to effortlessly evade it. Witnessing the monk's display of considerable strength, Yunyo found himself genuinely impressed, as it matched that of a typical yokai. However, in comparison to Yunyo, the monk appeared minuscule, akin to an ant. Within an instant, Yunyo retaliated with a simple yet forceful attack, propelling the monk through the air, ultimately crashing into a nearby tree. As the monk lay against the tree, seemingly unconscious, Yunyo's companion suggested killing him while he was defenseless. However, Yunyo firmly ordered his companion to leave the monk be, likening him to an insignificant ant that crawled beneath his feet. Thus, Yunyo spared the vulnerable monk. Surprisingly, despite his earlier defeat, the seemingly foolish monk returned to the yokai realm after 15 days, accompanied by his friend who is a martial artist and his sister named Jang Simpung, ready to confront Yunyo once again. With determination, the two martial artists readied themselves and launched a barrage of attacks against Yunyo, showcasing their impressive martial arts skills. However, Yunyo effortlessly blocked their every move. It dawned on him that if he spared them once again, they would inevitably return to the yokai realm, armed with even more formidable martial arts, in an attempt to end his life. Consequently, Yunyo made the difficult decision to eliminate both of them, which he accomplished. After putting an end to the lives of the martial artists, Yunyo turned to walk away from their lifeless bodies. Yet, his departure was abruptly halted by the anguished cries of Jang Simpung, the sister of the fallen monk's friend. As Yunyo gazed at the weeping young girl, he couldn't help but feel a sense of remorse. He questioned himself, trying to comprehend why he experienced such emotions. Despite his inner conflict, Yunyo made the compassionate decision to spare her life, allowing her to conduct a funeral for the deceased martial artists. Standing at a distance, Yunyo observed as Jang Simpung knelt before the final resting place of the martial artists. He noticed that she had been in this sorrowful state for a week, refusing even a single drop of water. This intrigued Yunyo, leading him to wonder why she hadn't returned to the human world. His companion, who stood beside him, provided an explanation based on the gathered information. It revealed that the young girl was completely reliant on her older brother, who had accumulated numerous enemies during his lifetime. If she were to return to the human world, her life would be in imminent danger due to these adversaries. Upon understanding the harsh realities the young girl would face if she were to remain in the yokai world, Yunyo found himself grappling with a difficult decision. He contemplated the possibility of allowing her to perish from starvation, knowing that sooner or later she might become prey for a yokai. However, a change of heart overcame him, and he approached her, offering a humanoid form of sustenance. Yunyo urged her to eat heartily, assuring her that her elder brother's soul would find peace in the afterlife without any worries. In that moment, Yunyo resolved to keep the young girl by his side, recognizing the immense challenge she would face in preserving her own life, regardless of where she went. Thus, the girl embraced her new life among the fox yokai without much resistance, swiftly adapting to the tumultuous nature of their existence. Each passing day, she seemed to grow more accustomed to the violent world of the yokai. As Yunyo observed the girl from a distance, witnessing her apparent happiness, an indescribable sense of tranquility enveloped him. It was a serenity he, as a yokai, could never attain, merely from witnessing her joy, even though circumstances prevented her from being in close proximity to him. However, the situation takes a sudden and drastic turn as we are confronted with the lifeless body of Jang Simpung, her corpse suspended atop a pole. Yunyo gazes upon her with an expression filled with anger and fury. The scene transitions, revealing Yunyo's companion offering sincere apologies, acknowledging that had he been more vigilant, he could have saved the girl from the group of people responsible for her murder. As Yunyo listens to the remorseful words of his companion, his furious gaze remains fixed upon the lifeless body of Jang Sumpung, which now lies on a pavilion adjacent to his throne. In the midst of his anger, Yunyo cannot deny the depth of his feelings for her, acknowledging that he had loved her. Motivated by his deep anguish and love for Jang Sumpung, Yunyo embarked on a relentless quest to pursue anyone who possessed knowledge of her impending demise yet took no action, those who were unintentionally connected to her death, and anyone who had even the slightest involvement in the tragic event. His wrath spared no one, not even those close to the culprits, as Yunyo sought justice for the loss he had suffered. Amidst the sprawling corpses strewn across the yokai realm, their blood painting a macabre scene that refused to dry, Yunyo stood in the midst of the carnage. Despite the culmination of his violent pursuit, he found himself disillusioned, for the act of extinguishing their lives failed to alleviate the bitterness that consumed his heart. The resentment lingered, incessantly pulsating within him. Lost in introspection, Yunyo's attention was suddenly captivated by an unexpected sight. A delicate pink lotus emerged from the pool of blood, its ethereal presence captivating his gaze. As Yunyo's gaze remained fixated on the blooming lotus, a realization dawned upon him: the emergence of the lotus was likely the work of a celestial being. Filled with a mix of frustration and anguish, he directed his voice towards the lotus, proclaiming that it was too late and expressing his desire to be spared from witnessing any further bloodshed. Unexpectedly, the lotus responded to his outcry, blossoming in full splendor. In an instant, Yunyo found himself transported to a different dimension, coming face to face with a celestial being named Tathagata. Tathagata, the celestial being, initiated a conversation with Yunyo, presenting him with a remarkable proposition: the chance to relinquish his identity as a yokai and instead become a human. This proposition left Yunyo deep in contemplation, recognizing that a human life held more value than perpetuating a cycle of violence and suffering. Looking up at Tathagata with determination, he demanded to be transformed into a human. Tathagata laid forth his terms, explaining to Yunyo that he would grant him humanity only if he could live 1,000 years without committing any acts of evil and devote himself to atoning for his past sins. Eager to embrace this opportunity, Yunyo readily accepted the conditions set by Tathagata. Upon returning to the yokai realm, Yunyo contemplated the concept of time, recognizing that for immortal yokais with no set lifespan, it was akin to a fleeting cloud in the sky. With determination in his heart, he decided to mark the passing years by placing a rock on a pavement within a cave. As time progressed, he diligently upheld his promise, ensuring that he fulfilled Tathagata's requirements. A millennium has passed since Yunyo's initial encounter with Tathagata, and now we witness Tathagata commending him for his unwavering determination and the remarkable deeds he accomplished during his 1,000 years of repentance. Yunyo's efforts were particularly notable in preventing both yokais and humans from engaging in malevolent acts. Overwhelmed with joy, Yunyo stood there, radiating a sense of fulfillment. Encouraged by Tathagata, Yunyo was prompted to relinquish what he no longer needed as a human. Without hesitation, he reached within himself and extracted a luminous ball, known as his fox bead. This bead, painstakingly cultivated over thousands of years, had been his primary source of strength. As Yunyo reluctantly parted with his cherished fox bead, acknowledging the sorrow in relinquishing something so precious, Tathagata questioned whether he might come to regret his decision in the future. Yunyo firmly declared that he was not the type to make choices and later shift the blame onto others. In response, Tathagata softly uttered the word Amitabha, and a wondrous transformation took place. Yunyo's soul was instantaneously metamorphosed into a delicate pink lotus, which gracefully ascended and floated towards the human realm. Eventually, it found its place upon the body of a mysterious boy. The scene shifts, revealing a splendid building where a maid roams its halls. She murmurs, noting that their young lord, who is merely 15 years old, has failed to show signs of improvement despite receiving the best medical care and treatment from renowned experts. Carrying a bowl of water and a cloth, she approaches the door to the young lord's room, preparing to tend to him. However, as she opens the door, she is taken aback by the unexpected sight that greets her: a wide-awake young lord, seated with his eyes open, fixing her with an unsettling and peculiar gaze. News quickly reaches the young lord's father, who is taken aback by the revelation that his son, Yunyo, has awakened. Filled with a mix of shock and excitement, he rushes to Yunyo's room, eager to witness this miraculous event for himself. Inside the room, Yunyo struggles to maintain his balance as he senses a faint echo of a woman's scream. Curiosity piqued, he makes his way toward a nearby mirror. Upon glimpsing his reflection, a profound sense of astonishment overtakes him. Yunyo contemplates why he appears as a young child, questioning the unusual nature of his reincarnation, as typically one would begin anew as a baby. A sudden deluge of memories floods Yunyo's mind, accompanied by a piercing ache that engulfs him. He realizes that these memories belong to the previous occupant of the body he currently inhabits. Yunyo recalls that the previous individual was named Ha Yunyo, the eldest son of the lord of a vast merchant district known as Chenhajang. Strangely enough, he shares the same name as his current self. As Yunyo delves deeper into these recollections, he learns that Ha Yunyo was afflicted not only with physical frailty but also with severe mental weakness. He experienced an overwhelming shock at the loss of his mother, which led him to cease eating and drinking. Eventually, his health deteriorated, and he succumbed to a chronic illness, meeting his untimely demise. Overwhelmed by the stark contrast between his former existence as a powerful king in the yokai realm and his current feeble incarnation, Yunyo crumbles to his knees in shock. The realization that he now inhabits the shell of a weak individual who perished from illness consumes him. His face contorts into a menacing expression as a surge of memories and emotions courses through him. Recalling the words of Tathagata, Yunyo briefly succumbs to the weight of his own thoughts, collapsing to the ground. However, he swiftly rises again, acknowledging that the current predicament is solely his own fault. He laments his failure to establish conditions and safeguards beforehand to prevent such a situation. Determined to rectify the circumstances, Yunyo resolves to rebuild his body's strength once more. With a renewed resolve, Yunyo regains his footing, fully aware that he now possesses control over the body he inhabits. Craving sustenance, Yunyo's immediate priority is to satiate his hunger. With a ravenous sensation gnawing at him, he scans his surroundings in search of something to appease his appetite. However, his quest is abruptly interrupted by the unexpected arrival of his father. Tears welling in his eyes, the father is overcome with shock and joy at the sight of his son's reawakening. In a rush of emotions, they share a heartfelt embrace, and as Yunyo gazes into his father's face, fragments of their shared memories flicker across his mind, deepening their connection. Their poignant moment, filled with profound affection, is abruptly shattered by the audible growl emanating from Yunyo's famished stomach, breaking the spell and reminding them of his urgent need for sustenance. Without hesitation, Yunyo's father urgently instructed the maid to prepare some food, and together they made their way to the dining hall. As Yunyo settled into his seat, a plate of food placed before him, he felt a flicker of hesitation. Memories of his time as a yokai reminded him of the unsavory taste of certain human foods he had tried. However, he resolved to take a bite, his face displaying a mixture of surprise and disbelief that caused his concerned father to inquire about his well-being. Curiosity piqued, Yunyo asked the maid about the dish he was currently consuming. She explained that it was a delicately seasoned porridge, infused with finely chopped vegetables and meat. She had deliberately kept the seasoning minimal, believing that consuming heavily seasoned food might not be beneficial for his health. With a concerned expression, the maid inquired if the food did not meet Yunyo's taste. In response, Yunyo simply smiled and assured her that it was delicious, promptly devouring his meal with enthusiasm. The scene then shifts, revealing Yunyo's father celebrating the miraculous awakening of his son with the people of their estate. Amidst the jubilant atmosphere, the focus suddenly shifts to a girl standing in the middle of a serene pond. Perplexed by the commotion outside, she turns to her maid and queries the reason for the noise, finding it disruptive to the tranquility of the surroundings. The maid then explains that the young lord has finally awoken from his prolonged slumber, causing the girl to drop her book in astonishment, realizing that her long-awaited brother has finally regained consciousness. The scene shifts, and we find Yunyo running energetically throughout the estate. Suddenly, he comes to a halt, gasping for breath, and wonders aloud about the cause of his exhaustion. As the scene transitions again, we observe a group of estate workers observing the young lord's activities. Engrossed in their own discussions, some of the workers engage in unfriendly gossip, speculating whether the young lord might be possessed. However, their conversation is abruptly interrupted by Mr. Zhang, Yunyo's father's assistant, who admonishes them to be mindful of their words when it concerns those who provide them with a livelihood. Realizing their mistake, the workers promptly apologize for their thoughtless remarks. Mr. Zhang then steps forward and observes Yunyo's activities from a distance, with a seemingly bright smile on his face. The scene shifts once again to Yunyo, who is now seen meditating atop a platform. Frustrated, he voices his realization that despite absorbing natural ki for nearly 2 weeks, he has been unable to accumulate enough internal ki in his body due to the barriers created by the surrounding walls and buildings. Understanding that his efforts have been in vain, he approaches the guard stationed at the estate gate. Expressing his desire to take a stroll outside, he is met with a firm refusal from the guards, who inform him that his father has instructed them to keep him within the estate until he is fully recovered. Yunyo feels annoyed by their response. Coming to the realization that there is little he can do about the current situation, Yunyo chooses to sit down on a pavement and intensify his focus, aiming to attune himself to the flow of natural ki surrounding him. However, his meditation is abruptly interrupted by the appearance of his younger sister, Somi, much to his annoyance. She curiously asks him what he is doing. Looking at her with frustration, Yunyo explains that his progress in recovering his strength has been hindered by her overwhelming affection for him. Somi interjects, interrupting Yunyo's thoughts, and offers him a pack of snacks, insisting that they share it. As Yunyo gazes at the tempting treats, he inquires about their nature, and Somi happily informs him that they are sweets. Filled with excitement, Yunyo takes a bite and begins to savor the delectable flavors. While indulging in the sweets, Somi calls out to Yunyo and remarks on how much he has changed since waking up, noting that in the past, he would have avoided eating such sweet treats. Yunyo dismisses her comment, explaining that she will witness many different facets of his personality that she never knew before. Somi simply responds by expressing her fondness for him regardless of the sides he shows, but she lovingly urges him not to fall ill again. The scene shifts back to the main house in the estate, where Yunyo and Somi are seated in the dining hall. Yunyo's gaze falls menacingly upon the food placed before him. As their father approaches to join them for dinner, Yunyo boldly takes a big bite from one of the dishes, leaving his father in a state of shock. His father recalls that in the past, Yunyo would always wait for him to eat first before touching his own food. However, his father decides to set aside his surprise and proceeds to have dinner with Yunyo and Somi. After dinner, Yunyo and his father retire to the office for a conversation over tea. Considering the fact that Yunyo had been bedridden for an extended period, which hindered his education, his father expresses the desire for Yunyo to return to the academy and continue his studies. Yunyo, taken aback, asks if the academy is located outside the estate, to which his father confirms. Viewing this as an opportunity to venture beyond the estate, Yunyo agrees and informs his father that he will be leaving the following day. This news surprises and excites his father. In his excitement, Yunyo takes a large gulp of the hot tea before him, causing him immense pain. The following day, we witness Yunyo and his father standing together just before Yunyo's departure from the estate. Yunyo, aware of the true nature of the academy from the memories of the body's previous owner, considers it to be a mere facade and plans to use his attendance there as a means to find a way out of the estate. As he sets foot outside the estate, Yunyo ventures through the forest, taking in deep breaths and feeling an exhilarating sense of anticipation as he absorbs the abundant natural ki with each inhalation. Motivated by his newfound strength, Yunyo decides to test his current abilities by running and leaping at an extraordinary pace as he makes his way towards the academy. Meanwhile, back at the estate, Yunyo's father and his assistant, Mr. Jang, engage in a discussion regarding Yunyo's enrollment in the academy. Yunyo's father expresses his concern about whether Yunyo, with his kind-hearted nature, will be capable of making tough decisions as a future leader of the family. However, Mr. Jang assures Yunyo's father that Yunyo is still young and that signs of leadership will become apparent in due time. Yunyo's father's heart is filled with relief upon hearing Mr. Jang's reassurance. However, their conversation is abruptly interrupted by a guard who informs them that Yunyo has returned, leaving Yunyo's father in a state of shock. Hastily, Yunyo's father rushes to meet him, questioning why he has come back from the academy so soon. Yunyo then reveals that he has been expelled from the academy, much to the astonishment of his father and Mr. Jang. During the meeting with the academy's principal, it was disclosed that Yunyo had been involved in a fight at school, which could be considered more of a duel with the consent of both parties. Yunyo's father, taken aback by this revelation, explained that just a few weeks ago, Yunyo had been bedridden and could barely walk or run. It was difficult for him to believe that his son could engage in such a duel. The principal, wearing a shocked expression, remarked on Yunyo's incredible display of martial arts skills, questioning if he had received any formal training. Yunyo's father turned his gaze towards the visibly frustrated Yunyo and inquired if what the principal had stated was accurate. Yunyo confirmed that it was indeed true. He went on to provide further details, explaining that he had been subjected to harassment and insults by fellow students at the academy due to his underperformance. Initially, Yunyo chose to endure their hurtful words and restrain himself. However, when they crossed the line and insulted his deceased mother, and even his father, he could no longer tolerate it. The insults became unbearable, prompting him to take action. Yunyo expressed that the students had been harassing him even before his illness, and despite his efforts to endure their nonsense, he had reached his breaking point. Upon hearing this, Yunyo's father directed a menacing glare at the principal, causing him to tremble in fear and hastily offer his apologies. At the estate, Yunyo's father walked back home with Yunyo and Mr. Jang, expressing his excitement and praising Yunyo for his impressive speech at the principal's office. During their conversation, Yunyo expressed his desire to study alone from now on, which his father agreed to. Yunyo politely excused himself and walked away. As Yunyo walked away, his father, observing him, turned to Mr. Jiang and inquired about his thoughts on Yunyo's actions. Mr. Jiang replied that Yunyo had fought for his family's honor, which was commendable for his age, and more importantly, he had kept his motives pure. This left Yunyo's father filled with excitement and anticipation for his son's future. The scene cuts to Yunyo approaching the estate gate with a visible sense of annoyance. Surprisingly, this time the guards allow him to go out. We then see Yunyo in the middle of a dense forest, perched on a rock as he meditates, absorbing the natural ki surrounding him. As noon approaches, Yunyo springs into action, leaping and bounding at astonishing speed. He effortlessly scales a cliff in just 2 steps, reaching the pinnacle. There, he lets out a satisfied sigh before breaking into an exhilarated expression. Yunyo realizes that his legs no longer tremble, he is no longer out of breath, and his body is smoothly absorbing the natural flow of qi. With this newfound progress, he gazes down at the breathtaking view beyond the cliff, acknowledging that he is finally making some real advancements in his training. The scene transitions, and we find Yunyo in the presence of his father, engaged in a profound conversation. His father poses a question, asking Yunyo what is the most crucial thing for a person. Yunyo confidently responds, stating that money is the most important. Surprised by his son's answer, his father probes further, asking what comes next in importance. Yunyo ponders for a moment before replying that it is the power to protect that money. His father, taken aback by his response, decides to offer some guidance. He explains that the more accurate answer lies in the power to protect one's body because, even if someone loses everything, as long as they are healthy, they have the opportunity to start anew. As they leisurely strolled through the estate, Yunyo's father brought up the topic of learning martial arts, surprising Yunyo. Memories of the comedic attempts by the Buddhist and his friend to use martial arts against him as a yokai flashed through his mind. Despite this, he found the idea intriguing and decided to give it a try. He expressed his interest to his father, who became delighted by his response. They agreed to begin by developing Yunyo's Dantian, leaving him slightly puzzled but open to the new experience. In the training hall, Yunyo's father began explaining the concept of Dantian to him. As Yunyo listened, he realized that it bore a striking resemblance to a fox bead, which intrigued him. Curiosity sparked within him, and he asked if it was possible to extract the Dantian. Mr. Jiang, who was also present, explained that once the Dantian formed within the body, it became inseparable from it. Satisfied with the explanation, they proceeded with the process. Yunyo followed their instructions and assumed a lotus position. With his eyes closed, he prepared himself as his father began to pierce through his meridians. However, in the midst of this intense moment, the scene abruptly shifted, revealing a mysterious old man riding a donkey within the estate. The scene swiftly shifts back to the training hall, where an unconscious Yunyo lies on the floor, blood spilling from his mouth. His father is filled with shock and urgency, quickly instructing Mr. Jiang to fetch a medic. The medic arrives promptly and examines Yunyo, determining that he is not physically injured but instead in remarkably good health. Yunyo's father is bewildered by this revelation, and the doctor provides an explanation. He shares that he has encountered a similar case in the past and clarifies that what Yunyo is experiencing is a side effect that occurs when a substantial amount of internal energy is gathered in the Dantian all at once. Yunyo's father is taken aback by this revelation, expressing his astonishment that Yunyo hasn't learned any cultivation methods yet. He questions how Yunyo could cultivate without having a Dantian in the first place. In response, the doctor explains that cultivation can still be achieved without a Dantian, as internal energy can be stored within the veins. The doctor goes on to mention that Yunyo possesses an immense amount of internal energy and seems to have attained a high level of harmony between the yin and yang meridians. To reassure Yunyo's father, the doctor encourages him to verify the situation for himself if he harbors any doubts. As a result, Yunyo's father proceeds to sense his son's qi and is astounded to discover that Yunyo possesses over 120 years worth of qi. The magnitude of his internal energy leaves them all questioning how such a young child could possess such an extraordinary amount. However, their contemplation is abruptly interrupted by the arrival of the mysterious old man, who remarks, "Your son has grown since the last time I saw him." The scene shifts, and we find Yunyo lying on the floor, gradually regaining consciousness. Confused and disoriented, he wonders about his surroundings and tries to piece together what happened. However, his thoughts are quickly interrupted by the unexpected presence of the old man, who asks if Yunyo would be interested in learning martial arts. Startled, Yunyo turns around and is taken aback by the sight of what appears to be a frail and weak old man. Surprised by Yunyo's staring, the old man admonishes him to show some respect, as he will be Yunyo's master from now on. However, Yunyo adamantly refuses to be taught martial arts by the old man, assuming that he is probably weak, and demands to know their location. Annoyed by Yunyo's disrespectful attitude, the old man implores him to show some respect. However, Yunyo, visibly annoyed, vents his frustration at the old man, asserting that he will be the one to choose his own master and threatening to beat the old man if he doesn't reveal their whereabouts. Suddenly, without warning, the old man swiftly strikes Yunyo, sending him flying backward and rendering him unconscious instantaneously. After regaining consciousness, Yunyo finds himself face to face with the old man once again, who comments that Yunyo's body is weaker than he had anticipated. Fueled by anger and frustration, Yunyo swiftly launches himself off the ground, aiming to strike the old man. However, before he can make contact, the old man delivers another powerful blow, causing Yunyo to lose consciousness once more. Yunyo awakens once again, this time with his eyes swollen. Ironically, he ponders how many times he has seen the sky today. Determined, he rises to his feet and locks eyes with the old man, who utters the words, "Let's get started." The old man proposed a wager to Yunyo, stating that if Yunyo could grab his collar, he would leave. However, if Yunyo failed, he would become the old man's disciple, with the old man as his master. Initially hesitant, Yunyo rejected the offer, but as the old man taunted and provoked him, Yunyo's determination grew, and he ultimately accepted the challenge. Yunyo launched himself at the old man with great force, delivering a powerful strike. Although the old man managed to dodge the attack, he was still visibly surprised by the sheer strength Yunyo displayed. Filled with determination, Yunyo unleashed a barrage of attacks on the old man, each strike coming faster and stronger than the last. The old man skillfully evaded most of the strikes, but Yunyo's relentless assault eventually caught him off guard. Yunyo managed to grab hold of the old man's collar, a moment of triumph. However, instead of being defeated, the old man grinned mischievously and uttered, "You are quite an interesting boy." In a surprising turn of events, he swiftly retaliated by delivering a powerful punch to Yunyo's face, instantly rendering him unconscious. The scene shifts to the main house of the estate, where Yunyo's father engages in a discussion with the old man about Yunyo. As they talk, the old man reveals that Yunyo possesses a martial temperament that surpasses even that of his own brother, who was once the head of the Namgung clan and now leads the Miram alliance. The old man expresses his strong desire to train Yunyo, but laments that it would not be possible due to the bet he lost against him. Meanwhile, Yunyo is seen in his room, lost in deep contemplation. Just as the old man was about to leave, Yunyo stepped forward and blocked his path, much to the surprise of his father. Yunyo fell to his knees, addressing the old man as master, and expressed his sincere desire to learn martial arts. The old man was taken aback and couldn't help but blush in disbelief at Yunyo's unexpected declaration. The scene transitions to a brief recollection of a conversation between Yunyo and his father. Yunyo inquired about the old man, and his father explained that while the old man may not possess the same level of physical strength as some other martial arts masters, he possesses an unparalleled breadth of knowledge in the field. His expertise and skill in martial arts have earned him a place among the prestigious ranks of the 24 martial art masters, alongside his younger brother Namgung Jin, the leader of the Miram alliance. Returning to the present, we find Yunyo standing before the old man, feeling a mixture of disbelief and shame as he bows his head to the elderly figure. Yunyo, who was once the king of the yokai realm, can't help but feel a sense of irony in his current situation. However, realizing that he has no other choice at the moment, he resolves to make the most of it and become stronger than he is now as quickly as possible. 2 years later, we find Yunyo and his master locked in a fierce sword battle, exchanging blows with skill and intensity. As the fight progresses, Yunyo displays remarkable prowess, overwhelming his master to the point where the older man complains, questioning if Yunyo is attempting to kill him. Engaging in a seemingly unfriendly banter, Yunyo and his master eventually take a break, sitting near a campfire. Yunyo can't resist taunting his master, teasing him about his perceived weakness due to old age, much to the annoyance of the older man. In their conversation, the old man presents Yunyo with a gift, a heavenly grade sword. Yunyo eagerly unsheathes the sword and starts swinging it around, showcasing his incredible swordsmanship. The display leaves the old man in shock as he realizes that Yunyo has already attained a level of sword strength that took him a lifetime to achieve, all in just 2 years of wielding the sword. After testing the sword, Yunyo expresses his satisfaction with its quality. However, the old man interrupts him and sincerely states that with Yunyo's current level of strength, combined with the Namgung clan swordsmanship, he can easily defeat elders of large sect factions. Despite the compliment, Yunyo takes a seat and the old man notices his lack of enthusiasm. Yunyo explains that while the Namgung family's swordsmanship is powerful, he feels that it limits his ability to fully utilize his strength. This revelation shocks the old man, who inquires further, prompting Yunyo to decide to demonstrate something to him. With a determined gaze, Yunyo focuses on a tree positioned directly behind him. In a swift motion, he unleashes a powerful strike with his sword, causing the tree to shatter and creating a massive hole on the ground. Witnessing this incredible feat, the old man is left in utter disbelief, unable to comprehend what he has just witnessed. He inquires when Yunyo began developing this technique, and Yunyo calmly replies that he has only just started, surprising the old man once again. Curiosity piqued, the old man questions whether the technique is still incomplete. Yunyo confirms this, and the old man expresses his desire to see how far Yunyo's strength can truly go. Believing that his vast knowledge of martial arts can aid in completing the technique, the old man offers his assistance. In a playful manner, Yunyo taunts the old man, suggesting that he would be humiliated if he failed to help him. The old man grins in frustration, accepting the challenge presented by Yunyo's words. The scene transitions to Yunyo and his master traversing through rugged cliffs, with the master sharing captivating stories of renowned martial arts masters. He mentions legends like Dharma, who created martial arts, and how with the assistance of his friend Jamsambong, they were able to refine martial arts to perfection. Hearing their names, Yunyo couldn't help but laugh stylishly, finding amusement in the tales. However, the mention of Jamsambong triggers a bittersweet memory of Yunyo's younger sister, leading him to contemplate how she is faring in the realm beyond with her brother. A sense of longing fills Yunyo's thoughts as he wonders about her well-being and hopes that she is finding happiness in the afterlife. As they tread through the cliffs, Yunyo's master remarks that if Yunyo had been born in that era, he might have been one of the most formidable martial artists, eliciting a giggle from Yunyo. His amusement, however, annoys his master, who playfully scolds him as a mischievous rascal. 3 additional years have elapsed, and Yunyo, who once wielded a sword as a means to grow stronger, now finds that the sword itself has become his purpose. With a resolute determination, Yunyo unsheathes his sword as he stands face to face with his master. As his master readies himself, a white aura emanates from his sword and eyes. In a split second, his master charges towards Yunyo, poised to strike. Just as the aura of his master's sword is about to descend upon him, a brilliant blue light radiates from Yunyo's eyes, and in a flash, he shatters his master's sword into countless fragments. After the intense battle, Yunyo sheathes his sword, and his master calls out to him as he gazes at his shattered weapon in disbelief. The master asks, "How many strikes did you deliver?" Yunyo calmly replies, 1,000 strikes. At that moment, the master finally realizes that Yunyo has completed his sword technique. Yunyo mentions that the technique doesn't have a name yet. Intrigued, the master decides to name it the Heavenly Shattering Sword, a name that signifies its ability to break through the heavens. Hearing the name, Yunyo's excitement is evident on his face, as he acknowledges that the name is truly fitting for the technique he has created. The old man, unable to contain his amusement, can't help but call Yunyo a crazy punk due to the eccentric expression on his face. The following day, Yunyo walks into his father's office. His father notices his tired appearance and asks why. Yunyo explains that he stayed up late reviewing what he had learned from his master. Hearing this, Yunyo's father tells him to go pick up his sister from school. Yunyo initially resists, mentioning that it should be Mr. Jiang's responsibility. However, his father explains that Mr. Jiang couldn't go due to his mother's situation, so he asked Yunyo to go in his place. Reluctantly, Yunyo agrees to go pick up Somi, feeling annoyed by the request. As he makes his way to pick her up, Yunyo realizes that he has been consumed by his training and hasn't spent much time with Somi lately. He reflects on when he started obediently following his father's orders and genuinely caring about Somi. This self-reflection leads him to drag his feet in a somewhat aggressive manner as he walks to pick her up. When Yunyo arrives at Somi's academy, he is taken aback by the presence of several extravagant carriages. He feels a sense of embarrassment and wonders if Mr. Jiang also brings such fancy carriages when picking up Somi. As Yunyo stands near a tree, patiently waiting for Somi to come out of her academy, one of the escort guards accompanying a carriage notices Yunyo's gaze directed towards their direction. Curious, the guard confronts Yunyo, demanding to know what he is looking at. Yunyo responds with a smile, which triggers a violent reaction from the guard. However, Yunyo quickly reveals a golden plaque, symbolizing his prestigious family background, leaving the guard utterly shocked by this unexpected revelation. Shortly after, Somi exited the academy with evident excitement upon seeing Yunyo there to pick her up. Without hesitation, she enveloped him in a tight hug, clinging to his neck. As she held him closely, Yunyo couldn't help but comment on how Somi, now 16 years old, still ran up to him every time she saw him. In response, Somi simply stated that it was because she liked him. Nevertheless, Yunyo let out a sigh as he admired Somi's radiant smile, noticing how she increasingly resembled their late mother and grew more beautiful with each passing day. They began their journey back to the estate, strolling along the path. As they walked, the previously rude guard questioned his companion about Yunyo's identity. To the guard's surprise, the companion revealed that Yunyo was the young lord of Chunhajang. Back at the estate, we find Yunyo's father sitting in his office, wearing a somber expression as he gazes at a particular letter. Shortly after, Yunyo and Somi arrive from the academy and enter their father's office. There, he delivers the heart-wrenching news of Yunyo's master's passing.